Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Beerdcast. I'm your host, the Bearded One. You may already know me from YouTube, where I do beer reviews. And pretty soon, I'm going to be doing some brewing videos. I just had a Bohemian Pilsner kit. It was a no-boil kit from William Warren. I purchased it off morebeer.com, and it looks quality. It even told me on the yeast packet that Weihenstephaner uses this strain of yeast in their beer. So it just got me pumped because I'm a big German fan. I didn't even select the Bohemian Pilsner thinking it would be a German style, but obviously it is, and that gets me excited. So look for some type of brewing video in the near future. I also bought a Furmonster, a 3-gallon Furmonster off of Northern Brewer to ferment the beer in, and I just think it's going to be a fun experience. I also have an Oktoberfest kit that I bought last year from Craftysumbeertch, and I'm kind of iffy if I want to brew it. The yeast just hit the expiration date 2 weeks ago. I've got it in the fridge, but I think I'm going to call customer support at Crafty Beer and see if I can't get a new yeast packet. I don't want to buy a whole nother kit. I'm fine with seeing how a year-old malt extract and specialty grain pack is going to hold up. Which brings me to this. I also want to be a BJCP judge, so brewing bad beer, not necessarily intentionally, but brewing some old ingredients is going to help me to discover what bad beer tastes like, because up until today, and I haven't even drank homebrew today, I've never had a homebrewed beer. I've only ever drank commercially, professionally brewed beer. And while some of it tastes bad, I don't think I've ever had beer that has a lot of the off flavors in it, because they're brewed by professionals who have been doing this for years and they get paid to do it for a living. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see what a year-old grain packet will taste like in a brew. So today we're going to talk about the Alabama Brewers Guild. Mainly about politics that they're pushing right now, and we'll kind of marry that with Free the Hops. I'll kind of plug them. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I just feel the need to talk about the Alabama Brewers Guild and Free the Hops in my first episode, especially considering I don't have a lot of direction for the show. I don't really know where I'm going to take this show or what I'm going to talk about all the time. But if you just bear with me, I'll always try to think up something to talk about and give some content to the show. I definitely want to talk about beer politics. I definitely want to talk about beer organizations. And then I also want to talk about beer events and beer culture and beer history and things like that. Things that I don't think I want to convolute the channel up with. However, I will be posting all of these podcast episodes onto the YouTube channel for anybody who prefers YouTube and doesn't want to look at videos while they drive and all that kind of stuff. So check the channel for the podcast as well. But I will be using Anchor, I believe. And I will put episodes on Anchor, and I think Anchor distributes episodes onto Spotify and iTunes as well. So, alright, let's get started. And I don't have a beer I'm drinking. This is actually take 3 of this episode. I just can't get the perfect taping, I guess. So, last night I was drinking a beer during this episode, and it was a really good New England IPA from Sam Adams. But today I worked hard in the yard. Planted a bunch of plants in the front yard and laid mulch and cheese paper to keep the weeds out. And I'm just drained, so I'm not drinking a beer. I'm just so exhausted. I had me some grapes and an orange and some water, so I'm refreshed and I'm good to go. No need to worry about the state of my mind for this episode. So, politics, beer. Really wouldn't think that there would be a lot of politics in beer. You think it would be just kind of a cut and dry thing, but actually it's a complicated process, much like anything else in this country. And that's where House Bill 151 and beer taxes come in. I do want to put a preface here. I'm only going to talk about Alabama politics. Now, something huge in the liquor industry comes out in the national spectrum, I will cover it just out of obligation, but I'm mainly here to talk about Alabama politics because I'm from Alabama and I expect my listenership to mainly be from Alabama. So, House Bill 151 and beer taxes. Excise taxes are probably the least fun part of the beer industry, but they are important for brewers. House Bill 151, introduced by Representative Nordgren and awaiting a hearing in the House Economic Development and Tourism Committee. Say that 3 times fast. It would solve a major issue with the ABC beer excise tax when applied to brewery tasting rooms. So apparently there's a discrepancy with taxes that have to do with brewery tasting rooms. So what is the ABC beer excise tax in Alabama? Well, it's $16.30 per barrel when the keg is sold by the wholesalers, not sold by the brewery that made the beer in the keg. It's $24.80 per barrel when the same keg that is sold in that wholesaler is sold at the brewery who made the beer is sold in their tasting room. So that's pretty messed up. You're dealing with like an $8 increase in taxes when you choose to sell your own beer. Now that's pretty stupid, ain't it? So what does House Bill 151 say? Well, it says that every manufacturer, licensee, file and tax returns, pay the taxes, and perform all obligations imposed on wholesalers at the time and places set forth therein. Excuse me, that is not House Bill 51. That's Alabama Code 28-3A-616I1. Even I'm getting confused saying this stuff. So, why does the brewery pay more? Well, I'll tell you. The Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board has decided to impose the tax on the pint instead of the keg. Do you think there would be a discrepancy by taxing the pint? Of course there is. The answer is of course. Why? Because of the way the beer state excise tax rounds up, brewers pay 10 cents per 16 fluid ounces in a pint instead of 5 cents per 12 fluid ounces imposed by 28-3-184. To be clear, we do not believe the ABC is acting illegally or maliciously. The way the original Brewery Modernization Act was written in 2011 is vague and subject to some interpretation. However, we also believe the legislature clearly intended for the brewery tasting rooms to pay the same rate as wholesalers. Now, I think one issue that comes along with this law when it was written in 2011 is the state of the beer culture in Alabama. Up until the last 20 years, I'd say, up until roughly 2005 even, I would have to say Alabama was known for being blue-collar, grassroots people that worked hard And when they get off work, what are they going to do? They're going to go home and plop in front of a TV, or they're going to go to a bar, and they're going to have their Miller Lite, their Coors Light, their Bud Lights, their Bud Heavies, Miller High Life, all that yellow, sudsy, good stuff that Americans have been drinking for 70, 80, 90, 100, maybe even more than 100 years by now. And Anheuser-Busch is a fairly old company. And so I think, this is just my 2 cents, I think that's why the law was vague and subject to some interpretation. Because we don't have a developed, mature beer culture in Alabama. We're getting there. We've got breweries here and there, and we'll talk about them in this podcast. But we're just not there yet. We're not Portland, Oregon by any means, or Wisconsin, or Massachusetts, or any of the other craft beer hotbeds in the country. So let's continue on. HB 151 clarifies the existing law, and here's what HB 151 says. Taxes on beer shall be levied at the same time the beer is allocated by the beer manufacturer for the purpose of retail sale before being dispensed for public consumption. So, when the brewery is allocating the beer, when it's putting it in the keg, they'll be paying the taxes, essentially. HB 151 is amending 28-3A-6I1, which was that vague statement we talked about earlier. Alabama Brewers Guild believes this is a simple sentence and makes it clear that the beer tax is assessed the same way for both brewers and wholesalers. I think it is. It's a very simple sentence. There's not a lot of convolution in it. It's straight to the point, very factual. I agree with it. The system is better for both brewers and the ABC. I would agree with that. The current system requires brewers to report each serving, that's even underlined on the webpage, to the ABC in monthly reports. Could you imagine having to jot down on Microsoft Excel or whatever these breweries use every single 16-ounce pint that comes out of a keg, and making sure that's reported every 30 days? How laborious. This process is time-consuming and error-prone for the brewery. It is. You're going to make a mistake trying to report every single pint, every single serving, because then you've also got the tasters and the flights and all that stuff. So, for the ABC, tracking and verifying thousands of individual consumer transactions each month is an impossible task. It is impossible. How would you even track all that, honestly? The ABC has no way of accounting for spillage, whether beer goes down the drain or is left unserved in the keg. There's also no good way to account for small variations in pint sizes. Some beers have more foam than others. So not only do you have the issue of trying to report each serving, you're also kind of taking a hit when you have to allocate for the foam in the beer that doesn't give you the exact serving size in the glass, because you're not going to get it right every time. I don't care if you have an automated serving machine, you're not going to get it right every time. And then also the style may depend on how much foam you're going to get. And then also the spillage when beer is filled, or when there's old beer left in a keg and they got to dump it out. I mean, they're going to have to report that? No way. So, to wrap this up, the new system would make reporting simpler for the brewery while also making them more accountable to the ABC board. The full excise tax required by statute would be paid up front on the entire keg, and any spillage is already tax-paid beer. Sounds like something these breweries need desperately. Desperately. So let's backtrack here for a second. Well, I lost my page. Let's grab it back, shall we? AlabamaBrewers.org, and that is where you can find all this information. I'm just going to go ahead and spit it on out to you. So the article we just dissected was released in April 4th, 2019. So sometime either in April or March, that law was being proposed. So here we are with an update from May 30th of this year. At the beginning of the session, the Alabama Brewers Guild released a comprehensive reform agenda called Brewery Modernization 2.0, which what we just dissected in House Bill 151 is part of Brewery Modernization 2.0. The state legislature passed two key provisions of this agenda during the 2019 regular legislative session, and the Guild is committed to continuing to work to bring common sense reform to the alcohol regulatory system in Alabama. Brewery modernization is an ambitious reform package designed to clean up the law, to better account for the current state of the industry, and to allow continued growth for the craft brewing and distilling industries in Alabama. Although several provisions of the agenda were not fully addressed by the legislature this year, lawmakers did give final passage to two key parts of the plan. The Guild continues to advocate for more reforms to benefit the craft beverage industry and consumers. So not everything was passed, basically is what they're saying. But they did pass two key components that were pushed forward into the legislative process. So one provision was the ABC excise tax reform. That was that big thing we were just talking about on the last page we were breaking down. The legislature gave final passage to SB 404 on Wednesday, May 29th. A key provision of this bill fixes the way excise taxes on beer are assessed in brewery tasting rooms throughout Alabama. We already discussed that, so we won't beat a dead horse here. This was a major issue identified by Guild members. Definitely was. You know, we broke it down already, and it definitely did sound like a major issue. If signed by Governor Ivey, the bill makes reporting much simpler for the brewery while also making it more accountable to the ABC Board for Tax Compliance. Definitely. And then the second provision they passed were breweries owning brew pubs. So SB 404 also allows brewers to own satellite brew pub locations in Alabama. Consumers are increasingly interested in the type of experience provided by a brew pub, and this legislation allows owners to invest in this type of establishment. And I think this is going to be a good thing for breweries, as not everyone wants to go straight to the brewery. Maybe they want to go to a brew pub that's nearby wherever they're at and enjoy some great beer, and they don't want to have to go all the way across town to enjoy their favorite brewery's beer. And it also is a great way for breweries to maybe put a brew pub in a new location, maybe outside of their jurisdiction or of their distribution reach, and expose a new audience to their beer. That could be another way they could use these brew pubs. The bill specifies that a brew pub can only sell beer it brews on site, or that it purchases from a wholesaler, and it prevents a brewery owner from using the law to piggyback into other retail class establishments These caveats preserve the three-tier system in Alabama. I don't know what the three-tier system in Alabama is, so we won't cover that. But they're also making sure that breweries aren't selling other things in these brew pubs, trying to use a brew pub as a way to get into other markets and kind of cheat, per se. And it would be just a straight up, like, we made this beer, we're selling it in this brew pub. They're not bringing in more customers through Anheuser-Busch products or Miller Coors products or anything else. It would be strictly their product. And that would make competition a little more fair, as more brew pubs could potentially emerge in the state. Looking ahead, the legislature failed to address brewery-to-brewery transfers. The Guild believes that consolidation will increase in the next few years as local craft breweries acquire or merge with other local breweries. A major component of Brewery Modernization 2.0 is to allow transfers of beer between breweries under common ownership. So they want to clarify and reform some of the laws that pertain to breweries that have a parent company, and they just want to make it easier to transfer beer and cut out the red tape, essentially, to where they're just free to do what they wish. I like it. The legislature also failed to clarify the law around how three-tier system applies to nonprofit participation, contract brewing, and more. There's a real need for clarification in these areas, and the Guild continues to advocate for better beer laws in Alabama. I like it. I like what I'm hearing. I like the Alabama Brewers Guild and what they do, and I'm sure they've teamed up with Free the Hops to get some of these bills passed. I like that we have such a passionate group of advocates for better beer and a better beer culture and better beer laws in this state. I don't know how many states have these kind of advocacy groups, and I think it's important. I think it's important as a citizen to be an informed person, to know what's going on. I just think that is a civic duty, and that's why I want to include it on this show. Now, I'm not going to judge you, the listener, if you don't give a flip about these laws. That's fine. I know it was a lot of boring jargon and a lot of stuff that doesn't sound very fun, but I still think it's important to be informed about the state of laws going on, because eventually something might get passed that will affect you directly, and you're going to wonder why the heck that happened, if in fact it's a negative thing. So we just brought up Free the Hops. Free the Hops is an advocacy group. Their mission is to build community within Alabama. They also are big on education, spreading the joys of craft beer to all Alabamians, as they put it. And then last, advocacy, fighting for better laws and fairness in Alabama surrounding beer. Now, you can join Free the Hops. This isn't just a political organization for just politicians. Free the Hops has an annual membership of $30. And I'm not going to point a gun to your head and tell you to join, but if you're interested, you can go to freethehops.org and join there and join the fight and make Alabama a better state for beer. Now, there's a description of the membership, and they also include many benefits. These aren't all the benefits, but these are some of your benefits. You get a $20 credit for the Free the Hops online store. So right there, 80 or 85% of your annual membership is already paid back to you with this $20 credit. Then they will update you on the craft beer industry in Alabama. So you'll, again, like I've been saying, you'll stay updated on the climate, the political climate around beer. They might even update you on new breweries, new beers, or what have you. They also give you access to Free the Hops meetings and bottle shares. And that might be one of the biggest reasons why I'm probably going to join next year, are the meetings and bottle shares, because I need to network. I need to get out there and meet new people. Again, I want to be a BJCP judge, and this could be something I could leverage to help me be a better judge and be more active in the community. You also get special access to new locations and beer releases. So I don't know what that means per se, but if you're getting special access to new locations, maybe when a new brewery opens up, or a new brew pub, or a tap room, or a distributor that has a bar in it just opens up, maybe you can get first VIP access to it. And beer releases, I'm not sure what they mean by the beer releases, but I would have to assume it would be hard to get beers released in Alabama. Because otherwise, I mean, if it's just flagship beer, that doesn't seem like something that's a very good perk. You also get first chance at tickets to our beer festivals, which would mainly be Rocket City Brewfest in Huntsville and Magic City Brewfest in Birmingham. I'm sure there are plenty of other festivals, but those seem to be the main two. I'm also hoping the Alabama State Craft Beer Championship in Florence is part of that first chance tickets. And then you get preference for volunteer opportunities, and I really need that in my journey as a beer judge. I need to volunteer. I need to go to these events. I need to see what it takes to hold an event, make an event, set up an event. I need to get around judges and see what the process of judging beer is, and all that stuff. Because I've never been to a craft beer festival or convention or whatever, and I really need to go to one. And Free the Hops would be a great way, or a great excuse to go to one. So we're going to wrap this up with Great American Beer Festival coverage. And we're just going to cover Alabama. There were 320 medal winners in Great American Beer Festival. And I'm not about to rattle off all 320. It took GABF over 2 hours in their live stream to get through the whole thing. Although that included pictures with Charlie Papazian and that kind of stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting, since Alabama doesn't win a lot of medals in the GABF, sadly. I thought it'd be cool to cover the entire history of how Alabama's done in the GABF, being this is the inaugural episode. They first started documenting winners in 1983. I don't know if that was the first GABF competition, but on this website, it only goes back to 1983. And Alabama did not win a single medal until 1989, and Virginia Brewing Company won bronze for the Bock beer category, and the beer name was Dark Horse. I don't have any information on Virginia Brewing Company or why they're called Virginia, but they're out of Birmingham, and they are our very first medal winner, so that's pretty interesting. And then we did not win a single medal again until 1995, and that comes with an asterisk. Vulcan Brewing Company out of Birmingham, Alabama, won an honorable mention in English-style brown ale, and the beer name was Red Mountain Red Ale. They didn't even win a medal, but they got honorable mention. So, I mean, and it's listed, so I'll take it, since Alabama does not ever win medals hardly in the GABF. Then in 1997, Vulcan Brewing Company did it again, this time actually taking a medal. They took bronze in the German-style wheat ale. And the beer name was Vulcan Hefeweizen. So Vulcan Brewing Company must have been a big deal in the 90s. They're not around anymore. I don't know if they've been bought out or what happened to Vulcan Brewing Company, but they must have been a big deal in the 90s, winning honorable mention and then bronze within a 3-year time span. That's pretty big for Alabama. We're not California, uh, where you're just winning gold all the time at GABF. California is just riddled with medals all over the state. So we didn't even win another medal until 2005. So you're talking 8 years for Alabama to win another medal. And we won bronze in the rye beer category. The brewery was Oldie Auburn Ale House from Auburn, Alabama. The beer name was Catcher in the Rye. Now this one kind of saddens me because I did some research on Old Auburn Ale House. Wow, that's a tongue twister. And they were bought out by a company in Atlanta, and now they just distribute beer made out of Atlanta. They don't even make their own beer anymore. So that's another award-winning Alabama beer that I'll never get to try. And I've never had a rye beer, so that makes me want it even more. Fast forward 3 more years to 2008, and Montgomery Brewing Company won silver in the English style summer ale category for Montgomery Blonde. I believe Montgomery Brewing Company is still around today. They should be if they were competing in 2008. Montgomery seems to have really good beer. I had Bitter Constituent earlier this year, and that video is on the channel if you haven't seen it already. It's an annual collaboration beer, not necessarily that specific beer, but the Alabama Brewers Guild annually collaborates with a brewery in Alabama, and it's like a limited edition beer. And I happened to take a growler up to Wish You Were Beer in Madison off Highway 72, and I got a growler of Bitter Constituent, and it didn't last 4 days, I don't think. It was a very good IPA, very balanced, sweet and malty with that hop back end that you usually get in an IPA. It wasn't overpowering at all. I loved it. So, and they brewed that beer with Common Bond Brewers in Montgomery. So, good beer coming out of Montgomery, apparently. I'm going to have to keep my eyes out for Montgomery Blonde for sure. Nothing in 2009, 2010. Okay, here's one in 2010. Truck Stop Honey Brown Ale is a silver medal award-winning beer in the special honey beer category from Back 40 Beer Company out of Gadsden, Alabama. Back 40 Beer Company is one of the very first post-2009 craft beer breweries in the state. 2009 was a very significant year. I will switch up right quick. I want to talk about 2009 right quick. Now, you can find this on freethehops.org, but in 2009 we passed the Gourmet Beer Bill, and that increased the limit on alcohol by volume, or ABV, in beer from 6% to 13.9%. And that essentially brought craft beer to Alabama. Now, we've gone over it. We've been entering craft beer brews in GABF for a long time. We've been winning medals since 1989, so craft beer isn't necessarily something new to Alabama, but modern craft beer and what we think of it today and what it means today essentially started in 2009, and Back 40 took home silver in 2010 for that Truck Stop Honey Brown Ale. I'm not particularly a fan of Truck Stop Honey, excuse me. I believe it was my first beer. I believe that's the beer I covered in my Milestone series. It all kind of runs together after a while. You feel me? Nothing in 2011. I believe in 2012. No. 13, 14, 15. Here we go. Blue Pants Brewery, my very first local brewery, because Decatur just hadn't had a brewery until last year, in fact. And in 2015, Blue Pants Brewery took silver for historical beer category, and the beer name was Dortmunder Adambier. So I'm definitely going to have to write that down or something and look it up, because that's an award-winning historical beer, and I hope Blue Pants still makes it, because I would love to try it. I'm a big historical beer nerd. Anyways, we'll be geeking out about history and beer on this podcast for sure. You can guarantee that. As for 2 more years, in 2017, Trim Tap Brewing out of Birmingham, Alabama, took bronze in the fruit wheat beer for Paradise Now. That's their famous Berliner Weiss, if I'm remembering it correctly. It's a raspberry Berliner Weiss. Tasty beer, really good on a summer day. I liked it. Don't know, I'm not terribly fanatical about sour beers. It is a sour. All Berliner Weisses are, if I remembered correctly. But still, for a sour, it was a really good beer, and I would buy it again if I wasn't trying so many new, different beers. In 2018, Goat Island Brewing from Coleman, Alabama, took silver in the Munich-style Dunkel or European Dark Lager category, and their beer name was Duck River Dunkel. And I'm pretty proud that Coleman won in a German beer category, because Coleman has a very strong German background, so it only makes sense for them to win in that kind of category. And this year, the winner, I don't want to say the winner, the only brewery to get a medal in the Great American Beer Festival is Folklore Brewing and Meadery. They're from Dothan, Alabama, and they won a bronze medal in the Robust Porter category, and the beer name is Shadowcaster Porter. So if you're from Alabama, keep that on your list of beers to try. And so that's all from the Great American Beer Festival. It supposedly was a great event. I'd like to see Alabama win more awards. I'd like to see I don't know how many breweries from Alabama actually even entered. I wish there was a way to find that number. I mean, if you just go down the list, it's just all California, Colorado, Iowa, Texas is dotted in there, Florida's dotted in there, North Carolina, Slade. North Carolina took first and second in one category. Wisconsin gets in there. Nevada has some occasionally. Pennsylvania, Washington, Oregon. I mean, I know I sound like I'm rattling off every state, but there's certain states that just continually win. And I don't think that's anything negative. I think they're just putting out really great beer. And I would just like to see Alabama consistently bring beer to the Great American Beer Festival, so we can put our name on the map as a state and win more medals. That only helps the breweries' reputations when they win medals. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. I've already gone close to 40 minutes. I feel like that's enough content for tonight. I know a lot of it was not fun content. It was... I know politics aren't always everybody's favorite subject to talk about, but I'm pretty sure I did a good job of staying clear of either side of the aisle. and we talked about things we all love and appreciate. As far as the next video, or the next Beerdcast, I'm thinking about covering Oktoberfest, talking about the history of Oktoberfest, and maybe talking a little bit about the 6 beers that are on feature at Oktoberfest. I think that would be pretty fun, considering Oktoberfest just ended tonight as of the day I recorded this podcast. And it's always been a dream of mine to go to Oktoberfest, so I think it's only befitting to talk about Oktoberfest. Until next time, guys, cheers.